In this video, I'm going to give you some valuable insights on how I use Google Earth and Street View to research properties. I use these tools on a daily basis as I develop site facts reports for my customers. After years of walking lots, I can tell you that these two tools are nearly as good as standing on the back of a curb looking at a property. We've all seen the property listings that claim that a property is gently sloping. Well, now with just a few clicks, we can jump on Google Earth and actually get a relatively accurate measurement of whether that property has 2 feet of slope or whether it has 15 feet of slope. So let's dive in. I'll bring you along with me as I research a real property, and I'll show you how I use these tools. Okay, we're here at the computer looking at an actual listing that's for sale, and we're going to take a quick peek at this thing in the listing format first. Looking at this, it looks like it's a city lot, which is good news, which means it probably has utilities. It's got some views. This is great. Might have some trees and a little bit of slope. Let's take a closer look. I'm going to grab the address for it right here. Jam that into Google Maps and dive in on this thing. So the photos look pretty close to the listing photos. We're going to grab our little Street View guy here first, and we're just going to take a little walk around and see what we've got here. So here's our subject property, and yeah, we do have trees. It looks like we've got some slope. Some good things. I'm going to dive in here. We've got a power J-box right here. That's great news. Looks like we've got phone and cable here at the corner. Looking around, I'm not seeing any water or sewer. I do see that we have a sidewalk, and the sidewalk's already in. That's great, so we won't have to be buying a sidewalk. But I am not seeing anywhere for a driveway. So we'll probably have to figure on a curb cut and approach where we'll cut out a portion of that sidewalk and put in your driveway. I do see storm drain right here. That probably means that there's going to be some sort of stormwater or erosion control requirements. Let's go on up the hill and see what else we see here. Looks like this is the corner of the property, and dive in. Hey, that's good news. Look, we've got a water meter box. I imagine that pipe right there is probably marking where the stub is to tie onto the water. That's all great news. And diving in a little deeper, I think I see a piece of rebar right there. And if I was going to go look at this in the field, I would verify that that's a property pin. Now let's pull out, look at this thing again. Looks like we've got some rocks. There might be some rock hammering or extra excavation work to do. Looking at these trees, these guys are pretty established, and they are pretty close to those neighboring houses. So I would imagine you're probably going to have to hire an arborist or a professional tree faller to get these things down without hitting other people's houses or hitting the road. The other thing that I would consider, this is in the city of Eugene. A lot of the Western Oregon cities have tree preservation requirements, so if a tree is over a certain size, there's certain permits and restrictions on removing those trees. I would probably look into that with the jurisdiction. Looking around closer, I'm not seeing a sewer stub, so sewer stub would definitely be on my list of questions to understand if there's a sewer lateral and where that thing is located. One little trick that I use for finding these things sometimes is a lot of times you can call in utility locates, where a company will come in and locate where all the pipes are under the ground. For doing a property evaluation like this, they'll come in and they'll mark this power, they'll mark the phone, but a lot of times they'll mark that sewer lateral even though the stake might be covered up or it might be an older lot where the sewer lateral is not visible. So the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to back out of Street View, and I'm going to snag a good GPS coordinate. And then I am going to dump that into Google Earth. Google Earth has a neat feature that Google Maps does not have, and that is that it gives elevations, which is really, really handy. So you can see Google Earth gives a little bit more of a three-dimensional view, which could be helpful when you're trying to site and plan. It definitely gives perspective on how big those trees are. But the other thing that's really neat is it's going to show me elevation. So if you look down here in the very bottom corner of the screen, you see that 735 feet. That is actual ground elevation. So if I put my cursor right here at the back of this sidewalk, I know that the bottom of this property is at 722 feet. Now if I move it up the sidewalk, look at that, 752 feet. So that means we've got 30 feet of elevation just across the sidewalk. Now let's go to the back corner of this property and see what we've got going on. We've got 753. So that means that we've got about 30 feet of fall across this property. That's pretty significant. If you look at some of the neighboring properties, you can see they've got a lot of step foundations and decks and stairs and that sort of stuff. So I would definitely figure that for building a house on this property, you would need to plan on some decks, some retaining walls, probably some creative excavation, and quite a driveway. But you do get some amazing views. As you just saw, a quick check with Google Earth and Street View can give you a ton of information without having to drive to a property, which could save you from costly surprises when you're buying land. But this is just the first step in a full feasibility review process. If you want a professional report that gives you information about zoning, restrictions, access, hazards, and everything else you need to know before you buy a piece of land, head on over to sitefactsreports.com and I'll handle that research for you. If you enjoyed this video and you have questions about land research, go ahead and drop them in the comments. I'd love to cover them on a future video. If you like what I'm doing here, hit the like, subscribe, share so that more people can learn these land tips, and I'll see you in the next video.